everybody. Welcome back to Terrace Talk. I'm Connor South, while you're watching this on whichever Pinkin channel this happens to find you on. And I don't think this is a game I'm particularly going to have to sell too much. Norwich City, of course, hosting Brentford, first v second in the Championship this midweek, Wednesday evening at 5:30 kickoff at Carrow Road, which seems quite early for a midweek kickoff. But there you go. The TV companies have had their say, and we'll hear from two fans of the respective clubs across the next half an hour or so to get a nice preview for this one and find out just how well their nerves are doing 48 hours or so before kickoff. Delighted to be joined by a Norwich fan, part of Canary Cast as well, Jacob Robinson, and also Billy Grant of the Besotted Brentford podcast. Gents, thank you very much for joining me. Billy, I'm going to start with you, really, because I think it feels like, certainly from a Norwich perspective, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, that maybe for this game, the onus does feel like, given the lead that Norwich have at the top of the Championship, that the onus is going to be on Brentford to come to Carrow Road, look to attack, and crucially look to win.
Yeah, I suppose it is. And listen, thanks for having us on as well, again, Connor and everyone out there. And I know, we're coming to the business end of the season, sort of kind of Brentford fans, Norwich fans, everybody out there. So it's probably a little bit nerve-wracking, but we were talking about this because we recorded our podcast actually during your Wycombe game yesterday. So it's Norwich versus Wycombe, and we had it on the big screen there. And of course, we were hoping that Wycombe would do the business, but they was asking a little bit too much. And we were chatting about this game and trying to work out how big a game it was. And in a really strange way, we're kind of like holding it down. I think that we know it's obviously a big game because if we get 3 points and you don't get 3 points, it puts us sort of kind of 3 points closer to you, and you actually kind of dragged, closer to us and also everybody else. So in that respect, but on the other hand, also we're thinking, to be quite honest with you, it's still 13 games to go. The league is, the top of the table is basically 4 teams at that top of that table. And if we lost that game, it's still not all over, because what we've seen is that this league, and you've seen it, is so bonkers, right? You know what I'm saying? It is so absolutely bonkers. We could lose to you, and then we could, win the following game or whatever like that. You could lose to Sheffield Wednesday or whoever it may be, and then all of a sudden it's all back up in the air. So it's kind of just not like the Premier League where you see, like, Manchester City or whoever it is just go on and they win all these games, and it's really boring. However, saying that, yes, of course, it's the onus for us to come and sort of win this game and do the business. And I think the way that Thomas Frank operates, what he normally does is he tries to go in, keep it steady Eddie, try and keep it, even Stevens as it is, to at least half time, maybe even going a little bit further than half time, so that we're still within the game, and then we just step it up. That's just the way that we run it. So in a strange way, I think that, yes, we want to win, but I think that we'll be happy coming away with a point from this game, knowing that anything can happen in the remaining 12 games of the season.
That's really interesting what you've said there about the Championship changing, because a few weeks ago, Jacob, Norwich lost to Swansea, and it felt quite gloomy amongst Norwich City fans. And ever since then, Norwich City haven't dropped a point. They now find themselves in a really healthy position, and the table has turned again. So I guess there's a possibility, and we speak about how crucial this game is. It's not a decisive, whoever wins is automatically getting promotion to the Premier League, right? But for Norwich, just to put this in context, if they did manage to win this game, I mean, they're already in a pretty healthy position, 10 points clear of third, 7 points clear, of course, of Brentford going into this game. A win to put themselves 10 points clear of Brentford currently in second would be absolutely massive, wouldn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't think it's a coincidence that since that Swansea game, Emi Buendia comes back from suspension, and then, like you say, we just kind of go back to normality, really start ticking over. You kind of simplify it as easily as he is the main difference in that team. Without him, we look like a very, very average Championship side. With him in there, we look a lot more professional based. Ben Gibson as well coming back yesterday is a big deal for us, kind of coming in from defence, passing into the midfield, helped a lot, I think, against Wycombe, especially in that second half. Yeah, like you say, against Brentford, it's a big one, because in my eyes, it's probably them and Watford in terms of goals-wise, the biggest threat going forward. I think Swansea, whilst they have a brilliant defence, just don't score enough, as we saw against Bristol City side where they absolutely battered them, just couldn't get over the line. And when you're relying on that defence so much, it's a tricky one. But for me, yeah, it is a big game. But, I think Norwich, they're looking at not really losing that game. But at the same time, probably Cardiff aside this season, we haven't looked convincing at all against the top 6 side. And maybe that will be a big push from Daniel Farke to say, look, let's kind of put our stamp on authority to show that we are the best side in this division.
That's a really interesting point you make there about Norwich's form against the top 6 sides, maybe not being as good as you'd expect. But Jacob, we got 5 minutes in. You mentioned Swansea. Look, we told Billy we weren't going to do that after what he told us before we started recording. Dangerous territory. Billy, just to come to you then, and hopefully we can gloss past Swansea and move on pretty quickly. But we spoke about, and Jacob alluded to there, Norwich's little blip, if you want to call it that. Brentford yourselves had one fairly recently, 3 consecutive defeats, and yet, like you said, I guess it feeds into what you said about the league being bonkers, but you're back up to second and things look fairly rosy again. How positive is it that Brentford have seemingly come through that little bit of a blip and remain where they are, especially after, I guess, last season?
Yeah, obviously it's really important that we've come through that blip. I mean, tell you something, it's really weird about these blips because people get really sort of kind of hung up on obviously it's very important, but form and how teams are doing stuff. So like, say for example, we've gone on, what's it, I can't remember, 21, 22, something like that, games unbeaten. And everyone's going, oh my God, it's unbelievable. Brentford are on 22 games unbeaten. And the pressure's kind of on you every time you go into a game thinking, God, we've got to at least draw this one or else, it's going to be disaster zone. So you've got this situation, then all of a sudden you lose a game and people go, oh, Brentford, you lose 2 games and people go, oh, Brentford, you lose 3 games. But if you'd lost those games in between that run, or was at the beginning and then you had that run, people wouldn't say anything. So I think you've got to be a bit careful not getting sort of kind of too hung up about these things. As they sort of say, unless you're like a Superman team, you're not going to win every single game, and, more often than not, if you lose a game, you might lose a couple of games. I think the thing to sort of kind of look into is that what kind of team are you? Good teams don't turn into bad teams overnight, not necessarily. And also, you might have, there's might be situations. It might be, you might be going through a few injuries. I mean, we've had, quite a few injuries which have hit us recently. We've had quite a few players that hit us recently. You had a few players that have been out of form at the same time. We've also, you can't also knock the fact that teams are playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday. And it really is taking a toll, almost to the stage where, not be funny, like you said, me watching games, I had to check out who we were playing on Saturday because I had no idea, right? Normally, I'd be like, I've got the train tickets, I'd know exactly where we're going, what's going on for the next 3 months, but now it's all blurring into one. So could you imagine what it's like for the players? They're playing a game, they come home, they go to bed, they get up again, they sort of walk, chill out a little bit, go to a little bit of training. So it must be really, really hard for them to keep focus. And fair play to Thomas Frank. It got to about November and he said, oh God, this is getting really hardcore. I'm going to have to start making some really tough decisions now. And basically what he meant is that he's going to have to be putting in players who are deemed as maybe not first stream, part of the squad players into the side against teams who you wouldn't expect those players to play against, especially if other players were not injured and these other players will be sitting on the bench. And, some of the fans were going, oh, what are you doing? Why is he on the bench? Why isn't he playing? Oh, you've lost it. But it seems that at the moment now, it seems to have paid off because a lot of teams are now really struggling with the fitness. I speak to my Millwall mate the other day and he just said, we are absolutely beaten at the moment now. We're struggling. We can't, we're struggling to attack. We're struggling to be creative. And I think, these last 13 games, it's going to be really interesting to see how it's panning out. And I know I didn't really try to mention the name of the team at Swansea, who came down to Brentford. We went up to Swansea and they didn't play very much football at all. They just cheated and hacked us down and fell over and did all sorts of stuff when we played them, which is quite interesting. It was quite different to how they played against you, actually, because they probably didn't do as much against the you as they did against us, but they really did play an interesting game because they just let us come at them. They let us come at them and they just didn't even bother trying to attack and they hacked us down and then they just picked up free kicks and tried to lob it into the area. And that was their tactic for us, which, to be fair, everyone's got their different style of playing, but it didn't go down particularly well in TWA. But I'm mentioning them because just looking at what their fans are talking about, I think they're saying that even they are struggling a little bit with tiredness and the rotation, and they're not quite sure how long our players are going to sort of going to last out to the end of the season, because I can understand, as a manager, you want to keep your best team in the whole time. And you can imagine, Ayew, you've got Lowe and all that lot have been out there for the whole season, and they're just looking tired. So we'll see what it's going to be like over the next, 13 games, which teams are going to really benefit. I think, teams like you've got some money, you've got some parachute money, you've been able to play your players from the Premier League and keep most of them in your side, and you've got a decently large squad out there. So I think that, you're going to be able to should be able to get the rotation right, because you've got a bigger squad. We haven't got that bigger squad, but we've managed to get the rotation going right by keeping a bit of a balance with the first string players and bringing in a few sort of kind of B team players, but mixing them up and playing them in the right way. So it's kind of worked for us so far. And obviously Watford as well, they've got a lot of money, and technically they should also get the rotation going right. And the fact that they've actually taken out the forwards that they sort of stuck with for most of the season, they look like they're actually kind of been forced to take them out now. It actually might have done them a bit of a favour with their new manager. So I think between the three of us, with Swansea possibly dipping in there, we'll see how that rotation thing works for all of us.
It's interesting you mentioned rotation, and I'll bring Jacob in on this, because one thing that Daniel Farke does like is continuity and consistency in his starting 11s. And I think we've seen that in recent weeks where perhaps he could have made three. I mean, people were looking at Sunday against Wickham saying, well, there's an opportunity maybe to give someone like Kieran Dow some first team football, or someone who's on the periphery of the squad a little bit at the moment. And yet he didn't. He made two changes. It was obviously Hernandez and Gibson coming back into the back four, and that was it. So this is a bit of a conundrum for Daniel Farke, because as Billy rightly says, Sunday, Wednesday, it's a short turnaround. There are going to be some players who are probably feeling it. How important is it that he does strike that balance in the first team that Billy spoke about, in terms of freshness, but also making sure you have enough quality to win football matches?
We had this debate, funnily enough, on the live stream yesterday, in terms of maybe not changes from the start, but when you're winning a game, maybe substitutions, freshen up, because that's what I think has been an issue recently, in terms of Norwich have professionally done a job, because, we have got better players than majority of the teams in this league, but we have looked leggy at times. Max Aarons has played every game, so has Ollie Skip, and they've done tremendously well to not really let it affect them. Like, they are on a different level, really, those two. But no, you're spot on. I think in terms of rotation, Daniel Farke's not a massive fan. 2 years ago, he kind of praised our fitness work, which we scored so many late goals from. Chris Domagala's done a magnificent job in the Premier League last year. I think we were evened up in terms of just how big a jump that is, but coming back down again, I think we look a lot fitter than other teams. That's probably because we've got the ball a lot more. But no, it is a big part. But at the minute, I think we're probably lacking in a couple of areas, which is why Mario Vrancic still plays at number 10. Marco Stiepermann has been in and out of the side with virus. Kieran Dow's not really fitted in. So there are kind of a couple of square pegs in round holes. But no, for the rest of the season, I do back us to be able to stay fit enough and kind of triumph in games.
You mentioned substitutions there. I'm hoping we don't see any more Gareth Ainsworth 5 substitutes in 4 minutes, which it was yesterday, which was quite something. I could have gone and put the kettle on and made a cup of tea if they'd give us advance warning, but there you go. It wasn't the case, and it did work for them, in fairness, didn't it? Jacob, just in terms of that win yesterday, for all the talk, and I feel like every one of these we've done this season, we've spoken about Emi Buendia, about something, about his quality, about him staying, about him leaving earlier on in the season. But today I want to focus on Teemu Pukki, because, as Daniel Farke says, he scored 5 goals now in as many games, just about. I might be slightly wrong on the numbers there, but he's a man bang in form. And it's funny, isn't it, as a striker, when you're in form, you can have a shot like he did on Sunday where it deflects off a defender and goes in, whereas perhaps a month or so ago he'd probably be looking at that shot and questioning why it hasn't hit the back of the net. It's amazing what a few weeks can do, but he looks re-energised, he looks recharged, and he looks ready to lead Norwich, hopefully, back into the Premier League.
Yeah, I think 18 goals from 28 games. You look at that from an outsider and go, yeah, again, he's had an incredible run. 29 goals the first time in the Championship. I think like you said, it took him a little while to get into this season, didn't it? The disappointment of last year. I think mentally, physically, he looked exhausted. But yeah, he seems a lot more refreshed, and like you say, he's got the luck, but it's the hunger's back from him. You know, the pressing is there, and he's so key to that. When you take him out of the side, it's unique, and his movement. I know Ivan Toney. I'm sure Sky will dub it up, and we'll talk about him shortly as well. But Teemu Pukki's movement at this level is unrivaled. It's Premier League class, and like you say, he's just so important. Hopefully, he can keep banging the goals and get around 25 for the season. Again, he's had an incredible campaign. Like you say, Emmy's the key man, but when it comes to finishing chances, there's no one better than Teemu Pukki.
No, absolutely not, and it's been really good to see him back in full form. He's obviously moved into the top 15 all-time Norwich City goal scorers now, which is quite a remarkable feat in 2 and a bit years that he's been at the club. Absolutely remarkable. From one goal scorer, then Billy Jacobs teed it up nicely. Ivan Toney, I guess it's the Brentford man that you've probably discussed a lot about this season. Just how good is he? At this level, I mean, we spoke about Teemu Pukki there and how good a season he's had. Ivan Toney is down the track in terms of goals from Teemu, and I might throw the question over who you'd prefer to both of you in a moment. But just talk to us a little bit about Ivan Toney and how good a signing I guess he's turned out to be for you guys after losing Ollie Watkins.
He's absolutely brilliant, great player he is. If everyone just wants to check out, it's definitely worth checking out. Is our podcast, which is on prideofwest.london as well. And like I said to you, we talk about the game at the weekend. We've got a little sort of stats guy as well, which we use, which sort of kind of we actually wheeled him in for the full podcast this time. We normally have him in a cupboard somewhere, and he sort of kind of gets all these figures, and he sort of kind of like, he sort of gets out his abacus and sends us over these stats figures, and we sort of read them out for a minute, and then we sort of wheel him back in. Well, we actually wheeled him out for the whole podcast, which was good time. And then we actually got one of our guys who normally does the podcast, who actually hates stats. And what we do is a bit of a joke. We actually get him to actually read the stats for the stats guy instead. So it's like, you got to be there anyway. So anyway, but it's definitely worth checking out. Prideofwest.london, the Besotted podcast this week. And we talk a lot about that. We've also got Di from Proud Canaries as well, who does the preview, the Norwich game preview as well. So she's very enthusiastic about you guys as well, which is good. So it gives a nice little balance on that. And we talked about Ivan Toney, and Ivan Toney is now on 25 goals, I believe it is. So he's got the same total as Ollie Watkins got last season for the whole of the season, and that's still with 14 games to go. I think he's lined up to be our biggest, or the person who scored the most goal for us ever, our record striker, as far as I know. Again, we got another guy who's our facts and funk guy, as we call it, JB, and he rolls them all out as well. But I believe that, Ivan Toney is going to be our record scorer as well. We had another record scorer. There's a third season in a row that we've had a striker score 25 or more goals. I know, which is quite amazing for us as well. And every time they've done that, then they've left and gone somewhere else, which isn't a great sign for Ivan Toney as well. So we've done that as well. But other than that, the other record scorers back in 1934 or something like that. But like I said to you, check out the podcast, prideofwest.london. It's definitely worth a check out. But Ivan Toney, he was brilliant. And like I said, he was meant to actually come to us last season. We actually bid for him, Peterborough, last last January. He was meant to come in the January window. We weren't going to sell Ollie Watkins. We're going to have Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney in our side. So that would have been interesting, whether or not he would have been coming off the bench or whether or not he would have gone up front and Ollie Watkins would have gone back out on the wing. I'm not quite sure how they worked that, but that was meant to be the case. Peterborough, they were kind of like, yeah, okay, a lot of money. I think it's about 10 mil or something like that. But then obviously they wanted us to sell him back or give him back to them on loan so that they can continue with him for their promotion run that season. And then we can have him in the summer. But obviously we didn't want that. And apparently one of the bosses actually said to them, but you've only got 10% chance of promotion. Why would you want to do that? And it didn't go down particularly well with Darren McAntony. If anyone knows Darren McAntony, he was very, very not happy with that response. So he decided to say no. So anyway, Ivan Toney's now come he's come to us this summer. Ollie Watkins has gone off, and he's brilliant because tell you what he is. He's your typical striker. When I say typical, he's the one who knows where the back of the net is. If the ball's into the box, you whip the ball into the box and Ivan Toney will be there. He knows how to manipulate the players around him, then get the ball and just knock it into the back of the net. We noticed that when he was out for a couple of games. He was out for a couple of games a couple of weeks ago. And we had our other striker, Force, who's a great striker. But it was just, we were just doing a couple of these moves where they're whipping the ball into the area and Force didn't quite get there. But Ivan Toney be the type of player who just nip in and just whack back in the back of the net. But he's not only brilliant because he does that, because everyone thinks all he does is scores goals. But if you look at him, next minute he's on the wing and he's basically teeing other players up and teeing goals up for other players. And then next minute you look at him, he's back in defence and you're thinking, what's he doing back there? And he's like, basically he's this all-round player where he's defending, he's setting it up, he's brilliant, So listen, he scored 25 goals for us. And, obviously, if he wasn't playing, we'll miss him. Again, another thing that you've got to remember is, like people say, if you haven't got that striker, then, it's all over for you. But you remember that, well, if you take somebody out of the team, you've got to put somebody else in the team as well. And it doesn't mean that person you put in the team is going to be rubbish. But obviously, he's a very, very good striker. And he's the type of player that we definitely need in the side. And I've got to tip me out to Brentford. To be fair to them, if there's one position that they just have seemed to have got spot on. Every year we've been in the Championship from day one, from Andre Gray, and then after that was Scott Hogan, then after that was Lasse Vibe, then after that was Neil Maupay, then after that was Ollie Watkins, and now we've got Ivan Toney, and they've just nailed it every time. And they just keep saying to us, don't worry, if we sell them, we'll just get another one who's even better. We're just like, yeah, right. But, listen, fair play to them. I wouldn't like to do that job because I think the pressure would be too much to just kind of improve what you've done before, because it's just incredible. And listen, it's only 13 games left to go. I keep on saying there's 13 games left to go, but it's not that long. It's not that long. So if we can keep him fit, because it's all about keeping players fit, and it's keeping them, keep him on the boil, then, it's going to be a very exciting end. But we're very lucky to have Ivan Toney as a Brentford fan who I've seen some terrible players in my time at Brentford. Honestly, I've seen some, oh, Jesus Christ, the Terry Butcher days, mate. I mean, you ask any Brentford fan about them and they'll look at you just like their glazed eyes, like, oh, sorry, my brain was removed from that era because it was so bad. I really don't remember it at all. So, no, honestly, we've seen some terrible football. So we've been very lucky to have been blessed by seeing some great football and having some great players at the moment now. And just fingers crossed we can actually finish it off for once, because we just never finish it off.
That's the key, isn't it? It's finally getting yourselves over the line. But as Norwich know, that can be the difficult bit. Jacob, in terms of Norwich City, and I was going to ask you each which striker you prefer, but then I thought you were just going to say the one that's at your respective club. So I think we'll skip that. I think you've both made a compelling case, given that Jacob spoke about Pukki, and we'll let the viewers decide perhaps who they'd want on their side. But two very, very talented strikers. I'm looking forward to watching them both. Jacob, in terms of how Daniel Farke approaches this game, we spoke right at the top of the show whether the onus was on Brentford and perhaps how significant it would be for Norwich City to win, even though maybe a draw probably for both sides wouldn't be the worst result, to be honest. It would kind of keep the status quo. If you're Daniel Farke, how do you go about approaching this one? Do you stick, I guess, or do you twist?
It's a tricky one. I think it'll be similar to the first game, where it was kind of Brentford came out very well, and I thought we eventually kind of grinded out in that second half. A bit of a pot shot. Kenny McLean, still don't know how he's been given that goal for the season, but yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. It's going to be a lot more even, isn't it? Daniel Farke, in terms of possession, we normally boss it. I think it'll be Brentford will, like Billy was saying, be a little bit more solid away from home. I know obviously there's no fans, but different pitch and all that sort of thing. Norwich will be probably in the ascendancy a little bit more to start off with. It's just being careful and cautious, really. It'll be interesting actually to see how Thomas Frank deals with Teemu Pukki. He was obviously his manager at Bromby, wasn't he? Which is interesting with Pukki in such good form. Obviously Brentford have a good back line whilst they've had injuries. It's well known that obviously very solid there now. Obviously last year and this year has been a bit better. It's a tricky one. I think you've just got, like you say, continue with consistency. Whilst we're saying about squad rotation, you've got to play the players in form. I think the only one you question really is if Mario Vrancic stays in the side. Whilst he's played well, number 10 is not his position, and we are lacking someone in that little area to be able to beat a man and then be able to play Pukki in directly like Stiepermann did 2 years ago. But everywhere else on the pitch, I think everyone's flying. I think Onel did well again for his first start on Saturday, Sunday. I will probably play him again if he's feeling all right from the dead leg, if Todd Cantwell can't play. But all in all, I'd stay consistent, keep the same team.
You've preempted my next question, which was going to be, would you keep Hernandez back in the side, providing that obviously Cantwell's going to be out, and it looks like he is. I think Daniel Farker said after the game less than 50% chance for him, which is obviously a massive blow given the positive form he's been in. So, but you would stick with Hernandez. You wouldn't be tempted to throw in Shemi Pacheta or even Kieran Dowell in that position, maybe that's been floated around by some people.
I just think Onel offers a nice kind of alternative to the likes of Buendia drifting in, whereas Onel, who's very direct and really had Jack Grimmer on kind of strings on Sunday, whilst it's a completely different level against Brentford, of course. I think he's the one, he knows this league as well. With Plaheta, he's been rested, I think, at the right time. I've seen obviously articles from yourself saying he's Plaheta's agent and himself was saying that he probably needed a bit of a rest. I think he's probably better as a bit of an impact sub and kind of back with his back behind the goal, and he's not really trusted, is he? I don't think he's fully at the Daniel Farker system just yet, but he is a threat off the bench. So no, for me, it has to be Onel, probably Mario, if, like you say, Todd's probably not going to be able to be fit, and then obviously the main man on the right wing.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for Buendia. Obviously, Billy Rico Henry is out, which is quite a big loss for you guys. So you can touch upon that in your next answer. But in terms of Thomas Frank and approach, how do you think he sets Brentford up? You said that maybe he'll look to keep Brentford in it for large portions of the game. At what point do you feel like he will go for it? That old football expression of going for it. Do you think there will come a point at Carrow Road where Thomas Frank decides to do that and really chase the game and chase that win?
Yeah, I mean, he will do. Actually, just quickly coming back to your point, Jacob, as well. You're talking about Timo Pukki and Thomas Frank at Brøndby. I don't know if I told this story before, but just quickly, I went over to Denmark with my son a few years ago, just for a weekend or a week actually, because he just needed to get away, and we found out that Michelin, which is the team that Brentford's owner Matthew Benham owns, was actually playing in Copenhagen that week. So they ended up sorting us out some tickets. I went down there, and they happened to be playing Brøndby at the time, which is quite funny. They lost in the end, but they ended up playing Brøndby, and got turned up there. All the Michelin fans were really great, come up to us and gave us a scarf, and just really lovely and really friendly. But anyway, what I didn't know until I picked up a program a few months ago, and I looked at the program that I had, it said that the striker that they had at the time was Timo Pukki, and the manager at the time was Thomas Frank. And at the time, obviously, I had no idea who Thomas Frank was, and I had no idea who Timo Pukki was as well. So it's like really weird how the kind of everything, everything's just sort of merged together at the sort of same time. But just coming back to this game and how Thomas is going to deal with it, we're very nervous because Rico Henry he's a massive player for us. He's really crucial the way that we play. The attacking wing backs that we do, which just kind of which kind of just confuses people, the way that we have all these players just coming out of defence and just sort of passing and running, just probably quite similar to what you guys do. And obviously with Rico out now, that's actually affected that somewhat. So we've had to compensate. What we've done is we've moved our team around a bit. But what's quite interesting about it is that we've probably moved the team around a little bit, which has forced a few changes, which you probably wouldn't have done if Rico was there. But it may actually kind of benefit us, because what we've got is, for a start, we've got Winston Reid, the old West Ham striker, who is over at Kansas City in the MLS. So we brought him in as a bit of cover, but he was cover for Pontus Jansson, who's not out. He's not back till after the international window. So we thought, let's have him just in case anyone gets injured, and we might bring him on. But all of a sudden, we've had to bring Reedy in because we've had to slip one of our centre backs in onto left back. Now, he's played a couple of games so far, and he's looked just quality. He's really dependable. We've had a real problem recently, just a few issues in defensive, a few defensive issues, which has seen us not being as solid as we have been for previous in the season. So seeing how Reedy has just come in, and he's kind of really sort of calmed a lot of things down, put his head to the ball, cushioned headers, cushioned passes, stuff. So all of a sudden, I can't tell you this for definite, but things have changed at the back there. So as Brentford fans, we don't quite know how it's going to go, because obviously you've got different players, you've got fast players, you might be running at them. Norwich are very different to Sheffield Wednesday and Stoke City, very different. So it may be completely like, oh no, this is a disaster. But it'll be interesting to see how the defence holds out. But I'm from what I saw the last couple of games, I'm sort of feeling quietly confident that we've got sort of a few steady pair of hands at the back there. And just coming back to your question as to, is he going to go for it? Like I said to you, we always switch it up 60 or 70 minutes. We'll, if the game is going right, we'll switch it up. But saying that, we've also had a really bad habit of letting in goals, within a minute or two. Normally, we get our goalkeeper to sort of get the ball and just throw it to the opposition, and then they put it in the back of the net. And then we go, oh no, we're 1-0 down. What do we do now? So hopefully, we're not going to go into the serial Brentford giving the ball and giving the goal to the opposition thing that we've done. We've been 1-0 down in 6 of the last 9 games. We've actually come back from 1-0 down to win the match. As I believe, again, if you check out prideofwest.london, that's JB, our statistician. He came up one of those ones as well, which is quite good. So fingers crossed we don't do that to Norwich, because I think that it could be a little bit disastrous if we do that. So I'll be very happy if we're 0-0 at half time. I'll be very happy if we're 0-0 at 70 minutes. I'll be very happy if we were 0-0 at 89 minutes, and then all of a sudden Ivan Toney popped up in 90+2 and put the ball in the back of the net. That'll do me. Thank you very much.
Jacob, I would assume that you wish for a very different situation than what Billy has mapped out there. But how do you see this game panning out for Norwich? How do you see Daniel Farke approaching it? Are you expecting, I guess, similarly to maybe what Billy is expecting from Brentford, a very cautious opening 60 minutes or so from Norwich City?
I think the first goal is massive, isn't it? Like Billy was saying, I've seen a couple of times David Raya has just given the goal away for Brentford, and obviously if we do that, we do really well when we're 1-0 up. I think it's going to be very similar to the Swansea game in terms of just being very tight, and obviously we made a couple of errors in that game and lose 2-0. For me, whilst I was saying earlier in the video, we really do need to put some authority against these top 6 teams, really, because we haven't done that at all yet this season. And they have all been very narrow, and we haven't really scoring against too many of them, probably Cardiff aside. But no, I think it will be a really tight game. It's one of those that Norwich don't really need to win, to be honest, with the points gap. I think if you keep that at 7, then you're a lot happier than kind of putting it down to 4. And then with Swansea as well, if you're narrowing up the table when you don't really need to. For me, I think Daniel Farke looks at this and says, let's keep it tight as well as we can. Let's not give away any silly errors like we did against Swansea, then try and nick one.
Interesting. Go on, Billy.
I've got a little theory for you. Sorry for interrupt, but I think it's, maybe just to make you feel a little bit more comfortable. If you think about it, if you just give us the 3 points and we win this game, then we sort of we increase the gap between everyone else, and then you guys, you can relax, because we'll be right in there, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Because So I'm sort of thinking that maybe it might be a theory where Daniel Farke might just he might have to employ. We'll be very happy with that one as well.
I'll let you sell it to him, Billy. I'll let you sell it to him. How about that? Jacob, go on then. Give us your score prediction for this one.
Oh, it's going to be, like I say, I think it'll be tight. I'm going to go sit on the fence and go 1-1, but I'd love to see us really kind of try and dominate this game. And with Brentford, obviously, have been injuries. Like I say, Rico Henry's out, so probably a little bit more defensive. With Sorensen left back, I'd say we kind of really push on and try and, make it our own. Make it a reason why we are top of the league and why we want to go up and kind of be champions. I think this is the game, really, to show that. But, for me, it'll be 1-1, very tight, and we'll take a draw.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be 1-1. Billy, let's come to you. How do you see this game going? I know you've mapped out your perfect scenario. What do you think will happen?
Just to say as well, I'm really delighted. Not only I'm delighted, but all the Bees fans are also really delighted that and Christian Norgard is back. He came back last game. He's been out for pretty much the whole of the season, and he's basically a player who, in effect, we were going to build our team around him. He's such a brilliant, CDM, and he's fantastic CDM, but he's also got great passing ability. He's been out for most of the season, and that's what scuppered us a lot. We were actually, people forget we were down in 18th place, I think it was, back in October. We didn't have a greatest start, and we were trying to basically sort out how we're going to sort ourselves out, with that defensive midfield position, and eventually Janelt came in and he's been absolutely brilliant. But it took us quite a fair few games to try and work out when Norgard got injured, because it really did scupper us. So the fact that he's back and I don't know whether or not he's going to start or not. I think he probably won't do, but he might come on at some stage. Honestly, he is one hell of a player, and he really can change the game. So bearing that in mind, I'm still going to stick to my 1-0. I think, Ivan Toney in the 90 plus second minute is going to be what's going to happen, and we're going to nick a win against you, and then we'll be there up front, and we'll just leave all the rest of them lot behind us. Actually, I'm only saying that as a bit of a laugh because, listen, it's lockdown now, and listen, we just got to make ourselves all jolly, and football makes me happy. So if you can't hope for what you want for, then what else can you hope for, eh?
Well, exactly, Billy. Exactly. Absolutely spot on. Gents, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. Really good half an hour chat. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. Of course, check the guys out. Check Jacob at Canarycast out, Billy as well, and the Besotted Brentford podcast. They do some good stuff on both of those channels. So well worth checking out. We'll leave all the links and relevant information in our description as always. I hope you're all staying safe. Another game, I wouldn't blame, as Billy said, anyone for suffering for football fatigue at the moment. There's so much of it. It feels like we're constantly, I don't know if you guys have seen that Mitchell and Webb sketch where it's just football. That's kind of what it feels like we're living in at the moment. But like I say, it keeps us distracted at what is a very difficult time. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, we'll be at Carrow Road, pinkin.com, the place to go for all of the coverage, all of the analysis, all of the reaction as per usual. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.
Thank you very much, guys.